here today with Amy Lou Taylor, and she is the owner of The Art of Tea and Tasseomancy, and we are right now in the Mystic Tea Room.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh my gosh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And you do a lot of things, Amy, besides running this beautiful tea room and tea museum. Or tell us a little bit more about what you do.
I am a tasseomancer, which means I read tea leaves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a cartomancer, which means that I read cards. Oh. But I am a tea sommelier, and I am a community herbalist and an organic gardener and a horticulturalist. So I wear a lot of different hats, but they all tie into one thing, which is a good cup of tea. So there's no way of going wrong with that, right? So.
And this is a delicious cup of tea.
It really is.
Nice tea.
This is your organic milk oolong.
Yes, it is.
Do you have a favorite tea?
I love oolongs. This is why I'm serving you an oolong.
Yeah.
So, but I love a lot of tea. Like, I have a ridiculously massive personal tea cabinet at my house. And when I decided to start bringing tea and blending tea and making teas and tisanes for the shop, I wanted to make sure that I was doing it as ethically sourced as possible. So I tend to bring in mostly organic teas or direct from farmer.
Another thing that you do is you teach
I do.
classes on how to read tea leaves or just understand tea or a little bit of everything.
All of that.
Yeah.
So most of my, actually all of my programs are online now, so it's through a Zoom platform. And for my tea leaf reading courses, they're extensive. They're 6 weeks for the novice, it's 3 weeks for the advanced. You don't get a certificate at the end of it because you're not a professional tea leaf reader at that point, but you've learned the basics and you know how to take things forward from there. Mm-hmm. Some people really twig onto it very well, and other people have a really hard time seeing things in leaves. So, you know, it all depends on the person.
So let's go back a little bit in time, and can you tell us how you got into just tea itself and, you know, what led to all of this?
So tea's always been a part of my life in one way, shape, or form, right? I remember sitting with my neighbors as a little girl and having tea with them, right? But then I also remember as a little girl going to Chinatown in Toronto with my mom. And my mom and I would, you know, literally sit down in a Chinese restaurant, and that's where I first got introduced to Chinese teas. So, and then from there, in my late teens, I discovered tea leaf reading, and it kind of just snowballed from there. Because you can't have one without the other. Like, you have to. The way that I teach it is that you need to know about tea to be able. It's one of your tools, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to know about tea. In order to be able to do readings with it, right? So I give a pretty broad education on that. So like, you can learn tea leaf reading from many other people, but my method is the method that I started out with, which gives you a lot of room to grow and create your own style of doing things, which I think is super important, because traditionally tea leaf reading is an oral tradition. It's something that is passed down from, you know, grandmother to granddaughter, or mother to daughter, or whatever. It's usually something that's done in a family. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to tea leaf readers, you're not going to find two readers that do it exactly the same, because it is this oral tradition. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's why I state very clearly in my courses that, you know, you're not going to be an expert because you haven't figured out your own method yet. Mm-hmm. And then once you figure out what works best for your method, what tea you like to use, what cups you like to use, all of that stuff, then yes, then you can say, okay, I'm a tea leaf reader, a tasseomancer, right? So
I guess while you're learning to read the tea leaves, you're also developing your intuitive abilities as well.
And that's something that I actually try to help people open up to throughout the course. Mm-hmm. So yeah, absolutely. Because energy is in everything, right?
Right.
Energy comes into play in every aspect, right?
Yeah. So can you explain for our viewers a little bit about the process of doing a tea leaf reading?
Well, strangely, you have to drink a cup of tea.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that.
Right? I know. Actually, it's amazing how many people say to me, so do I have to drink the tea? Because I don't really like tea. I use a rooibos for my readings only because I find it gives a really nice spread in a cup, right? So it gives me
Oh, yeah.
a lot of information to work with. So, but when it comes to doing a tea leaf reading, you have to drink the tea because there's that energy that's getting put into the tea. And then whatever is left over in that cup is what ends up being read. I would swirl the leaves around, get the spread in the cup, turn it over, right? And then whatever is left there, I don't read what's on the saucer, but whatever is left in that cup is what ends up getting read.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Very cool. I've never seen it done before, so I wasn't sure how exactly it happened. So that's really neat. So then when you're intuitively connecting and seeing images.
Yes,
Getting a
so it's a lot. So essentially, tea leaf reading is a form of geomancy. Okay.
That's what I was just about to ask.
So divining with a random object. So
Mhm.
literally, it's going to be something different every time you look at it, which is probably why I really enjoy it, because I need to have things changed up that way just to keep me interested in things, right? So it's a total Pisces personality thing. I just can't help it, but that's what it is. So each and every time that you're going to do a reading, you have some set rules that you start with. So there's certain areas of the cup that'll tell you a timeline, right? So like even though you have all these leaves all over the place, you're getting an idea of where your past, your present, and your future is, right? But then you also get an idea of levels. How good is it? How not so good at it? How shit is it, right? So that sort of thing is what is going to happen when you're doing a tea leaf reading, with me anyway,
Yeah.
right? Other readers are going to have other methods, but the cup itself has its locations, right? So using one of these Chinese gong fu cups is not going to be effective because you don't have a handle,
Oh, right.
right? Because the handle ends up being something that grounds your reading.
Ah.
So it's just like with tarot, you have a card that you start with. With the teacup, you have the handle.
And so, speaking of tarot or maybe oracle cards, a lot of people have an assortment, and they tend to.
Do you want me to pull my box out and show you mine?
Are you like
Yeah,
that?
seriously,
Yes.
I have way too many.
So is it the same with the teacups, like where you're kind of drawn to use a certain deck of cards?
Oh,
Seriously.
wow.
So you will pick a different teacup based on.
So I won't use these
Oh, you
for
won't
my
use
readings.
these,
No,
right.
because
Okay.
this is tasseography, which is different, right? So tasseomancy, true tea leaf reading, is actually done with a plain cup,
Yes.
not
yeah.
marked like these.
Right.
Tasseography, this is, so when you break the word down, right, you have tasseography, which is tas is cup or goblet, and then graphy, which is the mapping or marking of an area, right? So when you look at that Latin word, it's like, oh, okay, so this is about marking a cup, right? So tasseography is another term for tea leaf reading. Tasseomancy is actually divining with a cup, specifically. So that's more the true form of actually tea leaf reading,
Okay.
right? So no, I don't use any of these, but boy, do I have a lot of teacups and saucers. Yeah.
Now I have a question. So people that come to you for a tea leaf reading, what are they coming to you for? Is it just a general reading? Are they looking for specifics?
It is, it varies with each client. Okay, so the obvious, life, the universe, and everything, love, work, all those things. Am I healthy? Is there anything I need to be worried about? Most people that come and see me, when you sit down and have a reading with me, I ask you to not think of a question or anything like that. I do a general. Because what tends to happen with these readings is that you get to hear what you need to hear.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about what you want to hear.
Right.
Like, so you can want to hear about everything else, but if the cup is saying you're screwed, there's nothing else you can say about it. Like the cup is like, no, we're not going to talk about your Uncle Joe and his house or anything like that. You know what I mean? So, and that's the one thing that most people don't seem to understand. These type of readings are not predictive.
Right.
Right? So, because it is done with intuition and it's done with base symbolism, it is not predictive, right? Predictive reading is, I think it does people a disservice, to be quite honest, because people seem to think that the reading is gospel when it's
Yeah.
not,
Mhm.
right? The reading is just a glimpse of what's possible.
Mhm.
You are in
Mhm.
control of your fate. The reading
Mhm.
isn't, you know.
Mhm.
So if you hear something that you're not liking, this is your opportunity to change.
Right, and I know for us, and I'm guessing, do you go through that with the client? You explain that it's in the level of
Oh, yes.
potentiality, that everyone has free will. I think that that is so important because
Listen, this is ethics. This is
Yeah.
basic
Yeah.
ethics.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're not, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're setting yourself up to be for failure.
Mhm.
And that's what I teach my students too.
Good. Yeah, I think that that's so important because when I speak to people who have had readings in the past and they stick to
Mhm.
what the reading was, and it's like, I don't know if they were informed and it went over their head, or if they weren't informed that you have free will and we're reading in the level of potentiality.
Well, and this is the thing. This is the thing. So that's why it is so important. This is why in my courses I teach to my students is like, do not let your friends or like whatever you're saying, people are going to take you seriously,
Mhm.
right? So first of all, you know, make sure that they know that this is not written in stone. You have free will, number one. But number two, it's a CYA clause for you. Because if you say that the reading isn't in control, you're in control of what the reading is doing, then you're basically putting the onus back on your client to
Yeah.
take responsibility for their own fucking actions. I'm sorry, but this is the only way that I can put that.
Yeah.
Right? Because honestly, so many people seem to think that it's written in the stars or gospel. Listen, your astrological charts change every 2 years, people. Nothing stays exactly the same. It's not static. Nothing is static.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, for our viewers, is there any way that they can use the teas to affect their energy? Maybe even grounding or...
There are a lot of, so if that's what people want to be doing, then there is a lot of benefit in actually having green tea, white tea, or oolong tea for that purpose, but you're also ingesting caffeine, right? So that is something to keep in mind, because all true teas that come from the Camellia sinensis, and it's just the broad name for the plant, right? Many different varieties off of it. The most of the teas that come, well, all of the teas that come from the Camellia sinensis plant have caffeine. Right? But if you wanted to have specific for getting into the mood or grounding out, I would use herbs more than anything else.
Okay.
Right? So there's herbs that can be used for that medicinally, but then again, there's that magical crossover with herbs, which makes things really, you know, it's cool. So I make a Sears blend tea for people that want to tap into their intuition a little bit more,
Okay, that's cool.
where people can utilize, but it's all herbal.
Ah.
And, you know, some of the herbs are known magically for a specific purpose. And some of the herbs that are used in that tea are known for, I'm just going to rinse this out, are known for, you know, helping you get into that mode. So that particular tea, which is the one that's on that top little black shelf there, that particular tea has mugwort in it.
I have a question about that tea and the adding of herbs. Is it a silly question? But so there's tea and then there's
Never a silly
herbal
question.
tea,
Yes.
but they're actually not the same?
No.
Yeah. Herbal tea isn't tea, really, I guess, right?
Herbal tea is considered tisane.
Ah.
Okay.
Oh.
Now, in my Sears blend tea, I use galangal root, which is Thai ginger, which is known for helping to open up psychic ability.
Okay.
I'm going to get some of that tea.
So if people wanted to get in touch with you, they could actually come to the store, do some shopping,
Totally.
pick up some delicious teas.
Yep.
But for them to have a reading, it would be by appointment only.
Yep.
Yeah. And
And that's booked online.
That's booked
It's
online.
Really easy.
okay.
It's
So
a
we just go to your
really easy-
website
yeah.
and hit book. And your courses. How do people get in touch with you to take your courses?
So I announce through all of my social media when I've got new stuff coming up. But you can come like a half an hour before your reading appointment with me. You can shop at that point. You can shop afterwards, as long as our store isn't at capacity just because of COVID.
Right.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's so much to look at and so much to read because you have the museum here.
Yeah.
And I've been reading some of the tags, and it's absolutely amazing. I would actually recommend more than a half hour.
Yeah, thank you.
Because
I appreciate that.
There's just so much here. Yes.
So we'll include some information about how to get in touch with Amy in the description box below, your website and
Social media.
and all of that stuff. So
Mhm. Yeah, so thank you so much for taking this time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, ladies, so much for coming out.
And so we will be back, because I want to see your
Yes.
garden.
Yeah. We'll
Definitely,
definitely do that. We'll
Yeah.
definitely do that. So
Yeah,
thanks so
definitely.
much, ladies.
Thank you.